There is a sound no one has ever heard, because it happened where sunlight never reached. It was the sound of water being pushed aside by a massive mussel weighing more than 20 tons. Not a roar, not a screech. Just a massive, silent displacement. About 20 million years before humans even understood the concept of a shark, the oceans already had a king. It wasn't Megalodon. Megalodon, the creature you've heard about hundreds of times in movies and books, was actually just the successor to something even more terrifying, even more mysterious, and almost completely forgotten. That shark bore the rather unremarkable scientific name, Otodus chubutensis. But don't let the name fool you. Behind it stood one of the most perfectly engineered predators ever to swim through Earth's oceans, and the final link in the evolutionary chain before evolution created the greatest predator of all time. The question isn't, how big was it? The real question, the one paleontologists are still debating to this day, is, what happened to this shark? It didn't go extinct in the usual sense. It disappeared, to make way for something even bigger, stronger, and more ruthless than itself. And to understand why, we first have to travel back in time to an ocean that no longer exists. Imagine a timeline stretching across tens of millions of years, where a lineage of gigantic sharks evolved step by step, one generation after another, each becoming larger, stronger, and more refined than the last. That lineage began with Otodus obliquus, a formidable predator that was still modest compared to what was yet to come. Then came Otodus auriculatus, then Otodus angustidens. And finally, before the oceans witnessed the rise of Megalodon, there was Otodus chubutensis. This wasn't an ordinary shark. It was the final stepping stone, the closest thing to perfection before evolution completed its most terrifying masterpiece. Paleontologists first discovered its remains in the sedimentary rock formations of Patagonia, Argentina, a region that, 30 million years ago, lay beneath the warm, shallow, life-filled sea. It was there that the name Chubutensis was born, named after Chubut province, where its first teeth emerged from the earth after tens of millions of years of silence. But Patagonia wasn't the only place where it left its mark. From the coastlines of the United States to rock formations in Japan, from Europe to North Africa, the teeth of this shark have been found almost everywhere. A testament to one astonishing fact. This wasn't a regional predator. It was a global apex predator, dominating nearly every warm ocean on the planet for millions of years. What stunned scientists wasn't just its geographic range, but what it left behind. Sharks don't have bones in the way we normally think of them. Their skeletons are made of cartilage, a soft, flexible material that almost never fossilizes. When a giant shark dies, its body decomposes within a matter of days, leaving behind only one thing capable of surviving for tens of millions of years: its teeth. Paleontologists have developed a method for reconstructing the size of an extinct shark from a single tooth. They measure the tooth's height, compare it to the tooth-to-body proportions of its closest living relatives, and then extrapolate the shark's total body length. It's a cold, scientific calculation, with no room for emotion, but the results it produces are anything but. The largest Otodus chubutensis teeth ever discovered measure more than 10 centimeters in height. Based on current estimation models, scientists believe this shark could reach lengths of 9 to 12 meters. Pause for a moment and picture that. 12 meters is about the length of a city bus. It's like lining up 3 cars bumper to bumper. And that was a living animal, moving, hunting, with dozens of tons of muscle hidden beneath its silvery gray skin. For comparison, the largest great white shark ever documented in modern history, the predator many people still consider the ultimate terror of the ocean, measured only about 6 meters long. At its peak, Otodus chubutensis may have been twice that size. But here's where the story becomes even more fascinating. Despite its enormous size, Otodus chubutensis was still only a faint shadow of what came after it. If you placed it beside Megalodon, its direct descendant, the difference would be enough to send chills down your spine. But we'll come back to that later, at exactly the right moment. For now, the important thing to remember is this. This wasn't a lone creature wandering the seas. It was the ruler of an entire era, and the world it ruled was completely different from the oceans we know today. 30 million years ago, Earth was a much warmer planet. There were no massive polar ice sheets like the ones we have today. Sea levels were significantly higher, submerging coastal regions that are now dry land. The oceans remained warm year-round, creating an ideal environment where life flourished at an extraordinary pace. This was the world of the Oligocene and Miocene epochs, a time when the oceans teemed with the earliest marine mammals, which were undergoing a period of rapid evolution. Ancient whales, still modest in size compared to the giants of today, swam in pods. Primitive seals, prehistoric dolphins, and countless species of fish formed one of the richest food webs in the history of the oceans. And at the very top of that food web, with no rivals and no challengers, was Otodus chubutensis. It didn't have to compete with anything. In its world, the very concept of another predator didn't exist. Every creature swimming through those warm waters, whether it was a young whale, a fully grown seal, or any large fish, was something it could and would attack. This is precisely why scientists refer to this period as the age of the giant serrated sharks. It was an ocean where size wasn't an advantage, it was a requirement for survival. And in that evolutionary arms race, no lineage was more successful than Otodus. So how do scientists know what Otodus tubutensis ate? The answer lies in the very skeletons of its prey, or more precisely, in the scars it left behind. At fossil sites around the world, paleontologists have uncovered ancient whale bones bearing deep curved cuts with distinctive parallel grooves, the unmistakable signature of enormous serrated teeth slicing through flesh and bone. These weren't exploratory bites. They were the marks of full-force attacks, where the predator slammed into its prey with the full power of its jaws. The teeth of Otodus tubutensis were designed for one purpose and one purpose only: cutting through the thick flesh and heavy bones of the largest marine animals of its time. Each tooth had razor-sharp serrated edges and a triangular shape, reinforced to withstand the tremendous impact of biting through the body of a struggling whale. Scientists estimate that this shark's bite force may have reached tens of thousands of newtons, far exceeding that of any living animal on Earth today, including the great white shark and the saltwater crocodile. It was a bite powerful enough to crush solid bone in a single snap. Based on fossil evidence and modern reconstructions, its hunting strategy may have resembled the way today's great white sharks hunt seals: a sudden, high-speed ambush from below or from the side, where the prey was least likely to detect the attack or react in time. But with a body twice the size of a great white's, and prey that often included young whales weighing several tons, every hunt by Otodus tubutensis must have been a scene of staggering violence, the water turning crimson, desperate tail thrashes, and then, at last, silence. No creature living in the oceans of that time could withstand an attack like that. Otodus tubutensis didn't need to hide. It didn't need to stalk from the shadows. It was absolute fear itself, present everywhere within the waters it ruled. There's a strange truth about how we know ancient creatures like Otodus tubutensis. Nearly everything we know about it comes from a single part of its body: its teeth. As mentioned earlier, a shark's skeleton is made of cartilage rather than hard bone. Biologically, that's a remarkable evolutionary advantage, making sharks lighter, more flexible, and more energy-efficient swimmers. But from a paleontological standpoint, it's a tragedy. Cartilage decomposes rapidly after an animal dies, leaving behind almost nothing that can survive for millions of years. Teeth, however, are different. Shark teeth are coated with an extremely hard, mineral-rich layer of enamel that can withstand the passage of time almost indefinitely. Throughout its lifetime, a shark constantly replaces its teeth, shedding and regrowing thousands of teeth over the course of its life. Every tooth that fell to the seafloor became buried in sediment, and over millions of years, gradually turned to stone. That's why, even though not a single vertebra of Otodus tubutensis has ever been found, scientists have still been able to reconstruct almost its entire story: its size, its diet, its geographic range, and even the power of its bite, from nothing more than fossilized teeth scattered across multiple continents. But the absence of a complete skeleton is also the source of one of the greatest mysteries surrounding this shark. We still don't know exactly what its body truly looked like. Every reconstruction, every three-dimensional model you've ever seen of Otodus tubutensis is an informed scientific hypothesis based on its closest living relatives, not direct evidence. And that brings us back to the question we asked at the very beginning: what happened to this king? The answer, once revealed, will completely change the way you think about the idea of extinction, because Otodus tubutensis didn't disappear the way the dinosaurs did. There was no asteroid, no sudden catastrophe that wiped out the entire species in an instant. Instead, what happened was far more subtle, and, in some ways, even more astonishing. Around 7 to 6 million years ago, Earth's climate began to change. The oceans gradually cooled, ocean currents shifted. The prey that Otodus tubutensis depended on, ancient whales, began evolving in new directions. Some became larger, faster, and much harder to catch. Under that immense evolutionary pressure, the Otodus lineage didn't stand still. It kept changing. Each generation grew larger than the one before. Its jaws became more powerful. Its body became even more massive to take on increasingly larger prey. And over millions of years of continuous evolution, with no clear dividing line and no single moment of transition, Otodus tubutensis gradually became what we now call Megalodon. In other words, Megalodon wasn't a species that suddenly appeared out of nowhere. It was the final upgrade, the ultimate evolutionary achievement of the very lineage that Otodus tubutensis represented. Whenever you look at the gigantic jaws of a Megalodon in any museum around the world, you're looking at the product of tens of millions of years of relentless evolution, a process in which Otodus tubutensis was the second to last chapter. The king didn't die. It evolved into an even greater king. Although science has pieced together most of the story of Otodus tubutensis, there are still gaps that researchers continue to debate to this day. Its exact size remains a fiercely contested subject. Because the method of estimating body length from tooth to body proportions is an extrapolation rather than a direct measurement, the results can vary significantly depending on the model a researcher uses. Some studies suggest more conservative estimates, while others argue that this shark may have come much closer to Megalodon size than we once believed. Its body shape also remains an open question. Did it have the long, streamlined build of a modern mako shark, designed for speed, or was it broad, stocky, and powerfully built like a great white, designed for raw strength? Without a complete skeleton, there's simply no definitive way to answer that question. Then there's the deeper mystery. Where exactly is the boundary between Otodus chubutensis and Megalodon? In biology, evolution doesn't happen in sharp, clearly defined leaps. It unfolds as a continuous, seamless flow with no precise stopping point. That means any line scientists draw between these two species is, in some sense, a subjective convention, a human attempt to organize a reality that never had a clear boundary in the first place. And that's exactly what makes the story of Otodus chubutensis so fascinating. It isn't just the story of a gigantic creature that vanished. It's the story of us, humans living tens of millions of years later, trying to assemble a complete picture from scattered fragments, knowing that every new fossil we uncover has the potential to rewrite everything we thought we knew. Otodus chubutensis hasn't swum through Earth's oceans for millions of years. But, in a way, it never truly left. Every time someone mentions Megalodon, the predator that still captivates the modern world, appearing in movies, legends, and our most primal fears of what lurks beneath the deep ocean, without even realizing it, invoking the legacy of this very shark. Because without Otodus chubutensis, there would have been no Megalodon. Without that colossal stepping stone in the evolutionary chain, our oceans might have been a completely different place. Today's oceans no longer hold giants like these, but what happened beneath those deep waters, tens of millions of years ago, continues to be rewritten every time a new fossilized tooth emerges from the Earth, each discovery reminding us that the oceans once held, and perhaps still hold, secrets greater than anything humanity has ever imagined. So the next time you look down into dark, deep water, remember this. Megalodon was not the beginning of that fear. It was simply the newest chapter in a story that began long before, a story of relentless evolution, of a king that gave up its throne to its own descendant, and of mysteries that are still waiting to be unearthed from the depths of the ocean. If you want to know just how terrifying that descendant, Megalodon, really was, that's a story for another time. But now you know a truth that very few people ever stopped to consider. Before there was the greatest king of all, there was always a king who paved the way.